So hello again, everyone officially. My name is Alyssa Gardner from the Grad Academy. Thank you all for joining us for today's workshop, Choosing and Being Chosen, How to Select a Graduate Program and Get Them to Select You. We have really excellent panelists today from across UNLV. We have Ala Kiko, Director of Graduate Programs with the College of Sciences. We have Erin Rosenberg, Director of Student Services and Success with School of Public Health. We have Melissa Barrera, Senior Advisor from Student Academic Success with Pre-Professional Advising, Cindy Stella, Assistant Dean for Admissions Recruitment and Student Financial Services from the School of Medicine, and Dr. Lisa Davis, Executive Director for the Office of Graduate Student Services at Lee Business School. So we're going to start out by just having our panelists share some introductions before we get into questions. We do have prepared questions for our panelists, but of course, this workshop is for students on the call, and we'll welcome your questions throughout the discussion. We have a larger group of panelists today, so we're probably not going to get through all of our questions, right? But we hope that this workshop will connect you both to our panelists and the resources that they share to help you address questions that you have in the future as well. Okay, so I'd love to start out with just some more in-depth introductions, panelists. So would you please share a little bit more about your role and how your work connects with graduate applicants? I'll start off with Ala.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Ala. I'm the Director of Graduate Programs in Sciences. So I oversee the funding of our graduate students in sciences and the administrative processes. So once students are admitted or the admission decisions are decided on by our admissions committees and faculty of our individual science programs, I oversee the funding of our grad students, and once you're admitted into our programs, like forms and a lot of things like retention and the progression and completion process throughout our graduate programs in sciences. So in short, funding and administrative processes.
Thank you. I'll pass it to Cindy next, please.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. As Alyssa mentioned, I am Cindy Stella. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions Recruitment and Student Financial Services. So that is just as long as you can imagine as my title. We do everything from working with those who are exploring medicine as a possible degree, which is the MD degree here at UNLV, all the way up to when they're admitted and onboarding, and then through the life cycle with financial aid. So I can definitely answer questions when it comes to the MD program. I actually work very closely with Melissa over in the PPAC, and then we also do work with Dr. Davis because we do have some dual degrees. So we do have an MD MBA with the business school and then an MD MPH with public health as well. So I look forward to answering your questions today.
Thank you so much. Melissa, would you mind going next?
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. My name is Melissa Barrera, and I am an advisor in pre-professional advising within the larger student success unit at UNLV. That includes pretty specific career areas for students. So pre-med is largely one of those. But we also advise undergraduate students who are interested in things like pre-dental medicine, veterinary medicine, optometry, physical therapy, occupational therapy, physician assistant, pharmacy, and also pre-law. So students that are interested in any of those careers can come see us, and we help with understanding how to apply, how to be competitive before we submit those applications or before they submit the applications.
Perfect. So lucky to have you here. And just based next on my screen is Dr. Davis.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Davis, and I work with the Office of Graduate Student Services at the Lee Business School. So we work with the admission process, prospective students, and work with current students within our varied degree programs. So we do have cybersecurity, management information systems, quantitative finance, MIS, accounting, a number of dual programs, one with the med school, the dental school, the law school, and other colleges across the campus. So we do the gamut of student services from prospective students all the way to working with alumni.
Thank you very much. And Erin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Rosenberg. I'm from the School of Public Health. As Alyssa mentioned, I'm the Director of Student Services and Success. So my role really runs from recruitment. So I work on recruiting students into specifically our graduate programs. We have a Master's of Healthcare Administration, a Master's of Public Health. We have a PhD in Public Health. And then we also have a couple duals, as Cindy mentioned. We have a dual MD, MPH program, and then we also have a dual MHA program with the business school. So a dual MHA MBA. So I work from recruitment to the application phase. My role is really to help round up applications and get those out to our various committees. And then once you're admitted into the School of Public Health, I become the graduate advisor. So at that point, I kind of turn to RPC and try and get you graduated. And so that's our definition of success over here. So really run the life cycle of a graduate student. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, much appreciation to all of our panelists today. You're in good hands, students, on this call. So I'm going to start out with, our big, bold question at the beginning here. And panelists, whoever feels excited to jump in, please do. What key factors should students consider when choosing a graduate program that aligns with their academic and career goals?
So I can speak to that a little bit, and this is probably some stuff that Melissa also sees too. Is really kind of, and I in a former life did career services, so there's a lot tied into whether your career path requires a graduate degree. Some types of careers don't, and then some it is something beneficial potentially later on in your career. So one of the things I always recommend is exploring whether you first need a graduate degree and then at what level. Is it master's? Is it doctorate? And so really kind of talking to anybody that's here on the panel or using some of the exploratory resources on campus is a great way to really determine which one is the best. And of course, we're always happy to tell you, like if your dream is to be X type of person in your career, what type of education is really needed. So that's kind of where we start because there's many different things in healthcare specifically, which is what we do. And so getting an MD may not actually be the best pathway for you to be able to work with patients. There's lots of different choices.
And I can, I guess, add a little to that kind of what you were saying, Cindy. I work with a lot of students who I think sometimes get really preoccupied with prestige. So I would recommend when you're looking at programs, thinking of what do I want my career outcomes to be rather than focusing on the ranking of a program or something that's nationally known, or I just want to go somewhere because it sounds really fancy and prestigious, which can be great. And there's lots of great programs out there. But really thinking of what am I actually trying to do job wise? What jobs am I trying to get? Graduates of this program, where do they end up? Rather than focusing solely on rankings, because I know that can kind of mess with people a little bit.
I'd like to add the exploring of programs. Internships as an undergrad, I think, is a great way to find out whether or not you're really a good fit for a different industry. Taking that time to do informational interviewing, to talk to people that are in fields that you're interested in, or faculty, anybody on this panel as well. I know I talked to a number of students that they're not sure where they want to go, and I will refer them to a couple of different programs so they can explore those options too to find out what the best fit is for them.
So adding to all of that, if you are exploring graduate programs in sciences, which here at UNLV is biology, chemistry and biochemistry, physics and astronomy, mathematical sciences, and geoscience. If you're looking at sciences, it's about the research. All of our graduate programs, master's and PhD programs, our faculty are recruiting and admitting students for their research. So if you're interested in graduate programs in sciences, really it's about the research that you're interested in doing in that field, whether it's physics and astronomy, biology, chemistry, or any of those academic programs in sciences. So you really want to look at the faculty, what kind of research they are doing. And it's very easy these days because you can simply Google them and find their publications, what they're doing. And so you need to tailor what research you're interested in doing if you decide to apply for graduate programs in sciences. And does that program have the faculty that are doing research that is connected to what you're interested in doing? And ideally, you want to have more than one faculty member that could be a potential advisor or research mentor for you. Just in case, as you're strategically applying, you want to have several faculty potential advisors because you might not get admitted by one faculty member, but you might be interested in a second or third faculty member. So it's really have to be tailored based on what your research interest is in sciences.
I'll add on to that. One thing I always bring up is accreditation, and is the program you're looking at an accredited program? I don't think undergrad students are always thinking about that or familiar with that aspect. And sometimes it can be as easy as just asking the grad coordinator or the program director, depending on the program, if their program is accredited. You can simply usually Google and see if there is an accrediting body. So in the School of Public Health, we have CEEF, which is the Council on Education for Public Health. So our school is accredited by CEEF. And then our MHA program is accredited by CAME, the Commission on Accreditation for Health Management Education. And that can be important because, like, for example, when you graduate with an MHA degree, you may want to go on to do an administrative fellowship. And graduating from a CAME accredited program is really important to be able to successfully do that. So I think accreditation is just something you should ask about. In a former life, I went to a master's degree program where the master's degree program had to be accredited in order for me to sit for a licensure exam. So you might think, well, why would a program not be accredited if you need a license? Well, they exist. So just making sure that you're paying attention to that. And, if you don't know, definitely reach out and ask someone that's in the program you're interested in. Like, is this an accredited program? And just, kind of ask the right questions, I guess, just to make sure you're going in eyes wide open.
Thank you all very much. I think that really helped set the tone for this conversation, and we already have the information flowing. So I want to ask the next big question, and then after that, students, I'll open it up to y'all if you have questions yet. But the next big question I have, and again, anybody who would like to jump in, from your areas, what qualities do successful graduate school applicants tend to share? And how would you recommend students start developing those qualities early?
Our degree may be one with the longest list. And we have a saying that if you've seen one medical school, you've seen one medical school, because it does vary from school to school. And this is where somebody like Melissa's expertise, where she knows all the schools, comes into play. But probably the thing that will be similarly shared across the panel is your grades. You need to have strong longitudinal academic performance, because graduate school is challenging and it often moves at a quicker pace than your undergrad. From there, there may be some standardized testing. Obviously, we have one, MBA does, law does. I'm not familiar if maybe public health does as well. For entry, probably the standardized testing for graduate school. Some programs waive it. So something else to look at, but that's kind of really just backing up your academic performance. They should be in congruence. If you have a high GPA, we expect kind of a, higher national kind of standardized testing. But then from there, it is going to vary from school to school and program to program, because there's going to be other qualitative things that are looked for and they're looked at in different ways. For us, is things like community service, clinical experience, leadership, resiliency. And so there's kind of different ways through various experiences you can show that. Probably the best advice is to really go look at schools' official websites and pages, get with advisors who know across different disciplines and programs. And then you kind of want to be able to plan far enough in advance, especially if there's other prerequisite courses that are required. So for example, we require biochemistry on your application, but that can be up to 4 other prerequisite chemistry classes to get there. So there's some academic planning in addition to, of course, balancing your life. I mean, you may be working, you may be juggling family, So pacing, how to be successful in kind of all these different components for application is another place where not only recruitment advisors, like I have one in my office, but offices like the PPAC or academic advising or academic success or career services can kind of help you put all those puzzle pieces together along the way.
I can go. One thing that I think comes up a lot in advising appointments that I have with students, and a saying that I feel like I say this multiple times a day. It's that we call consistency over time. And so, yes, I work specifically with, pre-med and pre-dental and pre-law students, but across the board, I think that's kind of what makes a strong applicant is whatever your involvement may be, whether it's an internship or clinical experiences, volunteering. It's not so much just about the intensity of it, of, oh, I did a ton of experience, but it's all the month right before I applied. Being able to show that you've been consistent. Maybe it's not a whole bunch of different experiences, but it's a few really key things that have shown a lot of depth and reflection. I think that's what tends to be what I see from successful applicants. And I think that shows your commitment to the profession, that you understand what you're getting yourself into, whatever profession or program you might be applying to, and that you've been preparing for it long term. So you've really learned about it, and you're showing that level of emotional maturity, but just also kind of professional preparedness, I think. So that commitment over time, it doesn't mean you have to start, let me join 10 clubs my very first freshman year. But if there's one or two things I can start and try and stay consistent with, and that means I can grow over time, maybe take on a leadership role, I think that tends to yield stronger results.
I would echo those sentiments, definitely grades. Obviously, when you apply to grad school, we get a copy of your full transcripts from undergrad, and we'll often look through all of those classes. And sometimes, especially in healthcare administration, we see students who didn't fare so well in the sciences. And that's not uncommon. They thought they were going to be a nurse, or they thought they were going to go to med school, and maybe they realized that that wasn't their path. So we will be forgiving with some of those classes that we know, okay, they were on this one career path, and then maybe they found public health or healthcare administration or some, related integrated health sciences or something. And then once they found that degree, then their grades improved. So I would just kind of caveat maybe what everybody else is saying, that yes, we're looking for long-term um, career or success in school, but we also know that not everybody finds their path freshman year. And sometimes when you do find the program that you're really passionate about and you're interested in, your grades soar, because that makes sense, right? So that's one thing that we look at. We definitely look at, your resume, what, volunteer experience do you have? What student groups were you involved in? And then in our master's degree, we definitely are looking at where have you been working? So in healthcare administration, one of the metrics that our accrediting body always looks at is, are students getting jobs in healthcare administration, and specifically within 3 months of graduation. So we know if we bring in a student that is already working in healthcare administration, chances are when they graduate, they're still going to be working in healthcare administration in some form or fashion. Hopefully they've been promoted at that point. But that's one thing that we really put a lot of emphasis on is, if you just graduated from your undergrad, that's fine, but are you actively seeking employment? Because all our classes are at night. So we kind of expect, or really are pushing for our students to be already working. So
I'll add to that as far as the College of Sciences. So if you're interested in graduate school in sciences, it's about the research again. You're going to hear that a lot from me. And that is because our competitive applicants, to be a competitive applicant, to be admitted into a good graduate program in sciences, you have to have research experience. And so our successful grad students that get admitted have research experience generally for master's students. Generally, they have at least 1 year or more of research experience. If you're going to be applying to a PhD program, it should be probably above 2 or 3 years, really. But it really is about the research quality and not the time. So it depends on how much data you collected. Were you able to give scientific talks or poster presentations at research symposiums or conferences? So our our grad students in sciences have this intense curiosity of science. You should want to advance science through research, innovation, this intense desire for new knowledge, beyond what you read in textbooks and what you learn in a lecture, because you should have this burning desire to know what is not known about science, about our natural environment and scientific world. So if you have that intense curiosity beyond, sitting in lectures or reading a textbook, the next thing to do is to network and get research experience and work with a faculty member or their research lab and get research experience. And if you love it, if you're passionate about it, every day you love continuing your research as an undergrad student, and then you should definitely pursue graduate program, a master's or PhD program in sciences, because that's what you're going to be doing every day in that graduate program until you complete your research. And if you're in a master's program, you have to put together a master's thesis at the end to give an oral presentation or defense. And for doctoral students, you'll have to put all your research together into a doctoral dissertation. Science research takes a lot of time. It's a marathon. It's not something that happens quickly. It's not a quick sprint. So the best way to know if you're really passionate about science research is to do it. And so you have to network with faculty, grad students, and get your foot into some research lab to do the research. And if you love it, you're passionate about it, and that's what you want to do in life, an academic or career goal, whether in academia or in science, industry or government related jobs, but you love the research part, then that's what really makes that's what's going to make you a very competitive applicant for science graduate degrees.
Thank you. Lisa, was there anything you'd like to add to that one?
I just want to add, I think from what everyone else mentioned, the motivation for graduate study to make sure that you're applying for the right program, that you're a good fit for that program. And I know we have a statement of purpose that students will write, and I think that's really helpful for them to write that statement because they're going to have to go through why they're applying for the program, what they're bringing to the program, and what they're planning to get out of it. And I think that's really helpful to kind of narrow that down to make sure that you're applying for the right program and discipline and kind of know what you're getting into because those students are investing a lot of time and money for that graduate program. So doing that research, I think at the beginning is really helpful to make sure that they have the outcome that they're wanting at the end.
And that kind of does tie into the competitiveness. So I know like for medical school, we can see anywhere to, 45 to 50,000 applicants across the country for about 29,000 seats. And we kind of have some similar numbers at our school where we can see up to 2,400 applicants for only 300 interviews and only 66 seats. So kind of the underlying theme that everybody's mentioned about just really understanding that this is what you want to do is something that I think any admissions committee will be looking at just because of that competitiveness.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I want to ask you all to share the guidance that you have on the application strategy. So, timelines, how many programs should students be applying to while balancing their own time, their budget, their application quality? What sort of recommendations do you have in that regard?
I have a lot to say about this. Given the context of who I work with largely pre-meds, pre-law students, like I said. But truly, I think application strategy, it starts way earlier than you think. It is not typical, and I would say that, probably for most graduate applications, not just med school or law school, but it is not, hey, I want to apply next month and then get in, especially for, those like pre-med, dental schools, law schools, you're applying often a year in advance, sometimes a year and a half in advance. And so if that's when you want to be submitting your application, you have to think even further back of, well, if there's a test I need to take, like making sure I have adequate time to prepare for that and sign up for it, asking for my letters of recommendation, if I have to write a personal statement or some type of essay, if I want a chance to think of all the schools or programs I'm applying to and that I've done my research on them and that I'm prepared to apply and submit everything I need to for these programs, because oftentimes they come with application fees. So you want to be prepared for that aspect too, that I have enough money that I can apply to the schools that I want to. I think application strategy a lot is the timeline of realizing how long does it take to go through this process, and being prepared for every piece, so I'm not waiting until the last minute to ask for a letter or identify people who could write me letters, or quickly throwing together a personal statement and now it's not very well written, or not really thinking intentionally about all the programs that I want to apply to. And I've seen people apply to programs that they're missing a class or they don't meet the requirements, and so it's kind of just wasted money. So I think it starts there, is really thinking about what is when am I trying to start this program? When do I want to be a student in this program? And think backwards of when does that mean I need to apply? Because it can truly be a year or more of being in that process.
Yeah, of course, I back Melissa on all of that. I think the other thing too is be realistic as to which schools also kind of align with your profile. For example, in medical school, there's an entire database of the 154 allopathic medical schools across the country. And so we share in the same survey, like our average MCAT, our average GPA, the makeup of our class. Are we community based? Are we research based? And so if you kind of fit one school over another because you're really kind of aligning, don't apply to the schools where you don't align, because that again, it's a lot of money. There's primary application fees, secondary application fees. Some schools will have you travel for interview if they're not doing virtual, because the more in alignment you can be, the more competitive traction you can gain at those specific institutions.
And I think it's helpful for students to reach out to the different schools. I love it. We've had freshmen that reach out about our MBA program and they're thinking way ahead, kind of what the requirements are, how they should set themselves up in their 4 years of undergraduate study to eventually go into the MBA program. And those things might change, but they're exploring and researching early. And I think that's really helpful when they ask those questions so that when it's time for them to apply, they are ready to apply. And I think that also allows them to narrow down which schools would be a good fit for them. So they're not applying to schools that wouldn't be a good fit.
Yeah, to piggyback to what Lisa said, there are some classes that we look to make sure that you took in undergrad. So it's probably a little bit different than med school or law school where there's like specific prerequisites, but we're looking to see, have you taken a microeconomics class? Have you taken an accounting class? And so I love it when I have a junior reach out because they still have time their senior year. And usually room in their schedule that they might be able to take those classes before they even start our program. And that way we don't have to admit you conditionally, or you're not like scrambling to take classes in the summer before the program starts. So you can kind of hit the ground running. So if you are a junior or even earlier and you're already thinking about grad school, it might be worthwhile to just send, some feelers out there to programs you're interested in to just see, are there any classes you could take in your undergrad that would help support your master's degree? So that would be something I would add on.
I want to add a little bit onto that too, I guess, in terms of strategy. And I was talking about timeline. In my experience, a lot of people that I meet with are really, really hesitant about taking gap years or like it's going to look bad or I'm not going to get accepted if I take time off. But I think thinking in terms of your application strategy and what it's going to take for me if I do have an extra class to take or I do need more time to develop a relationship so I can get a strong letter or I need to do more research. To me, that is a better investment than trying to rush through an application process just to see what happens, which is oftentimes what I hear people, I'm just going to apply and see what happens. But I think, it's in my experience, it's totally okay to take that extra time. If I have a gap year, if that means I'm submitting a stronger application, that could be a strategy too. I don't have to rush in and apply for something straight away and start immediately after I finish my bachelor's degree.
I want to add with that one because with MBAs, we have a lot of students that have been working for several years. Our average work experience is about 5 years. People come back and they have a degree in history or they have a degree in criminal justice. And now they're in a point in their career where they have to understand budgets and more the business side. So we do have a number of students that come back for MBAs. Then we have students that are in their undergrad and they just want to finish the MBA. And I think what I tell a lot of those students is that it's a lot about timing. If it works right out of the undergrad, that's perfect. If it works 5 years after the undergrad, I have students that will come back and they'll say, I wish I would have done this right after my undergrad because they're coming back after 5 years and they're having to get back into the study mode. And then students that are coming right out of undergrad, they'll say, boy, I wish I had a little bit more work experience. I should have waited. And I think it's timing is very important for those students on what works best for them, at least for MBA and for business degrees.
Yeah, it used to be many years ago that medicine would say, no, don't do a gap year. It was looked at negatively, but it's not anymore. There's actually a level of maturity, as Dr. Davis was mentioning, that's pretty important in medicine. Sometimes you just need a break. We just ask that you do something productive during that time, whether it's work or community service but yeah, I think that that has shifted in the graduate application world as well.
Thank you all. I wanted to give you an opportunity, Alla. I don't know if you had anything to add about the application strategy or timeline
No,
piece.
I think they did a great job, so I echo all of that. Perfect.
Wonderful. So let's go ahead and address Ian's question in the chat here. And thank you, Cindy, for providing a response. But Ian's wondering, on average, how long should we consider before asking for a letter of recommendation? Is it better to get a generalized letter of recommendation or a more specific one, especially when applying for multiple programs? Anyone have thoughts on that?
I think it's helpful for the student to have recommenders that can speak to whether or not they can complete a graduate degree program and provide examples of how they work with that student, be it academic or professional, on why they feel that that student would be successful. We usually tell students to give recommenders at least 3 weeks to write that letter so they can actually put some thought into that so we have a strong letter for that candidate.
For medical school, we have an admissions process from the AAMC. It's called holistic review, and so what we're really looking for is as many as individuals as possible giving us information about the candidate. So it's like your application, the letters of recommendation, or more people from the outside telling us about you, your personal statement, your experiences. And so we like to have some variety and they need to be tied to your experiences. So, for example, if you have strong clinical, you should be able to ask a physician for a letter of recommendation. But as Dr. Davis mentioned, make sure you give them enough time because they're very busy. And so, if someone doesn't have enough time, they won't submit a letter, and that can be detrimental. But definitely think about people who really know you, who can speak pretty specifically to the qualitative things that we look for: teamwork, the ability to communicate, the ability to do leadership, the ability to take feedback, be resilient, kind of those types of things, because that feeds into our holistic review. Because it's not only quantitative, obviously, doctors have lots of qualitative qualities that they, obviously have to have to work in a patient and hospital or private practice setting.
Yeah, we usually suggest you give at least 2 weeks, but I think depending on who you're asking for the letter, my husband is a physician and he'll have a lot of students float through his clinic. And I know sometimes it doesn't get done in 2 weeks. So maybe, like Lisa said, 3, maybe 4 weeks might be better. I had a student this morning ask me to write her a letter of recommendation, and she told me it's due Thursday. So that's not really respecting my time. So how do you think I feel about writing that letter? So I think just try to give them as much lead time as possible. And the other thing, when you ask for a letter, it's helpful if you could send your resume along with that, especially if you have been working. We all work with a lot of students. And so sometimes, I might have known you for the last couple years, but I don't necessarily have you in class, or I don't have like a deep personal relationship with you. And so sometimes it's helpful if you send that resume, because I can speak to the experience that you have, maybe even outside the classroom, or you're on these, and like it just jogs my memory, like, oh yeah, that's right, you were the president of our student club for a year. So that's helpful when you ask for that resume. And then also just give context, like, will they be sent a link where they upload a letter, or do you want it back and the student is going to upload it for you? So as much description about who the letter is going to, give as much time as possible, and then attach a resume would be, I think, just helpful tips when you're asking somebody to do something for you like that.
Thank you. All right, we have a few more questions coming in the chat, and thank you for your question, Ian. So this one came directly to me. If you have work experience outside of the field that you are interested in, would it still be beneficial to add that in your application or to speak about it?
In medicine, the answer is yes. It's really kind of actually fascinating to our committee, the skills that you get from different industries here in town. So our committee will often say, if you've been a waiter or a waitress, you've, worked in construction, you've worked in retail, you've worked with the public significantly, you're probably pretty good at conflict management and communication and teamwork. So again, what they're really measuring is, what was your role at your employment? How much work did you do and still balance school and still do well at school? So time management comes out of that kind of assessment. So yeah, you absolutely, your work experience doesn't have to be medical. Now, do you need clinical experience? Yes, of course. And a lot of times that's done in a couple different ways. But I know for medical school, yeah, you could have a job in anything. Student workers, we see lots of student workers, lots of TAs, lots of tutors, those types of things as well.
I think it's helpful, especially if you're one of those students coming right out of undergrad and going into a master's degree program. We don't always expect that you have this lengthy work history. And I would also echo, there's some interest in healthcare in students that have previous hospitality experience. Our hospitals get measured on patient experience scores. And so, there's a direct link between people that have a hospitality background, that might be good providers or good administrators. So I definitely think there's a link, even if it doesn't seem obvious to you, I would include it.
I would also include any student organizations that you volunteer with, leadership roles as a student, volunteer work in the community. I think that's important. I do a lot of volunteer work with Super Summer Theater, and I think it's a great opportunity for people to learn about organizations and give back that way. I think that adds a lot to a resume as well.
So I would echo all of that for sciences. You have to go with your the people that know you the best, that will write the strongest recommendation letters for you. And if since you know them well, you should know how busy they are. So you got to give them that time. So be respectful of their time. And that's good advice, to give them a copy of your resume or your updated CV so they can see some additional things that they may not have seen, and that that they can add to your recommendation letter as well. For sciences, once again, research. So at least one of those recommendation letters should be someone that is your research mentor, your research supervisor, someone that can speak and attest to your research skills and experience. If you have another person that you can ask for a recommendation letter on research as well, that's great. But at least one should be a person that can really attest to your research experience and your skills, because that's what the admissions committees in sciences and certainly the faculty, when they're looking to recruit a graduate student, what students to interview and so forth, they're going to be really focusing on that person that can attest to your research skills and experience.
Thank y'all. Um, Kind of continuing the conversation we're already having because you shared a few examples here, but I want to kind of combine some of the questions in the chat. Um, so Lisa mentioned volunteering, Ala mentioned research. What are some other things that students can share if they don't have work experience? What advice would you grant them? And also, looking at Ian's question, what are some good ways to get involved in the community outside of our university that could be beneficial for those looking to fill those kind of gaps?
Yeah, for medical school, you don't have to have paid work experience. If you do, that's great. If you don't, it's okay. And it's solely because we do require community service and clinical experiences. So if you're focusing on those, and clinical experience is like physician shadowing, scribing, which actually does pay, which is kind of a benefit, but really you're doing it for clinical experience. Community service is huge for the medical school. It's actually like the number one experience that you have to have. And so we find that students just approach their favorite nonprofit. There may be something that you're passionate about, whether it's Three Square or Opportunity Village, Boys and Girls Club, VMSN. I mean, there's so many nonprofits in town. And there's all kinds of volunteer pathways. Even the hospitals, you can actually go to their websites and see how to become a volunteer at the hospital. So it's kind of just really thinking about where would you like to spend your free time, because you're obviously volunteering, and that you can do it in a longitudinal fashion. To us, it doesn't mean anything if you just do like one Saturday with Habitat for Humanity, but it means a lot to us if you spend a year kind of spending maybe a day a month with that organization. So yeah, when it comes to the second question there with the community service, it's really just kind of thinking like where would you like to spend some of your free time and really get involved and grow with an organization.
And I think kind of going along with that too is thinking of, yes, where you want to spend your time and what are some problems you want to help solve. That might not be directly related to the programs you're trying to apply to. I tell this to the pre-med students I work with all the time is, yeah, your community service, it doesn't have to be healthcare related. If you're really passionate about, I've had students who are really interested in understanding food insecurity. And so they've wanted to go volunteer with Three Square Food Bank or a local food pantry. Students who are really interested in, I'm really passionate about working with children. And so or I'm really passionate about education. So I'm gonna tutor young kids, or I'm going to be someone who volunteers with the Boys and Girls Club of Southern Nevada. So I think it really is about number one, identifying what your specific interests are, because that's what's going to make it a more meaningful experience. That's what's going to make it stand out on an application. If you're invested in it rather than, oh, I'm just doing this because I need hours. Having a high amount of hours is going to make my application look good. It's really the quality, and if you're invested in it and something you're actually genuinely interested in. So that might be something, is just to kind of spend some time thinking, what are the topics that I'm passionate about, or what are the causes that are the most interesting to me.
And you never know where that next opportunity comes from. I know I've worked with students who've started off something that they're passionate about, an organization, and end up, they get letters of recommendation that they've worked with. They've had other job opportunities from those volunteer opportunities. So again, just never know where those opportunities come from. And I think volunteer work does allow you to really explore your passions, get involved with the community, and make a difference.
Thank you. We have one more question, two more questions in the chat here, and I think that's probably about the time that we have. Um, so from Alexandra, looking for an out-of-state program, what would you recommend for connecting with those schools to learn more and try and determine if they are a good fit?
I would look and see if the school does information sessions. That's huge for us in medicine. So we do virtual information sessions at least once, if not two times a month year round. So that's a really amazing way to get connected. If the schools happen to not be doing that, it would be reaching out to their admissions office and just trying to get connected and find out, like what's the best way for me to find out about your program, or maybe speak with a recruitment manager kind of about what the program is about and if you're a good alignment. But most programs do information sessions, which is a great place to start.
For some smaller programs, you might right on the website find a program director. Here we call them graduate coordinators typically. If you can't find a recruiter specifically, I would email that person and just say that you're looking to find out more information about the program. And they can either, if they're the person that talks to you, maybe they'll schedule a phone call or they'll at least point you in the right direction if they are offering info sessions.
And use that moment too to plug that if you are looking here at UNLV, many departments have their own information sessions, colleges. I'm also going to put in the broader grad recruitment and admissions, which has a lot of more programmatic specific information sessions. So I'll put that link there, but just, make sure you're exploring and within your own departments or within your own future departments for the information that is going around. Okay, so let's wrap up with just one more question from Rika here, but I also want to kind of expand it. So she asked, does the community and volunteer service need to be current or can it be from a couple years ago? And I want to kind of expand that to what you think on sharing experiences, work related, academic related, that are a little bit older. And how do do you think that students should include those? How does the context matter there?
I'll jump in. I think one thing that always kind of sticks out to me when I see some volunteer experience is like if they volunteered like in 2020 and haven't done anything since, I almost think that looks worse. So I would say like if you have some time before you are applying, if you can reignite some of that volunteer experience so there's not such a large gap, that may help mitigate that looking like a negative instead of a positive. I don't know anybody else's feedback on that, but at least for volunteer experience.
For us, we do like community service to be current. We really highly recommend because we're a community-based school. So we really recommend that you're kind of actually in active community service when you apply. However, because there are so many different components to medical school, we do understand if maybe you did a lot of community service and then you kind of had to take your foot off the gas to go study for the MCAT. So timing kind of also becomes something important. We also don't want you to have thousands of hours of community service, but have a low GPA. So like you should be prioritizing your academics. So there is a little bit of a balancing act there, but you will want to kind of find out what is most important to the school and then try to set your priority order in that manner.
And I think with that statement of purpose that we use, that we want students to complete, if there's something like that, maybe they had a lot of extra time during a year or two and they did more volunteer work. They could explain that. And also, we have them explain maybe the reason why their GPA is not stellar, because they could have great work experience, but maybe there was something happening that affected their GPA in a semester. So that statement of purpose, I think, is helpful to also explain any inconsistencies in the academic or professional resume.
Well, thank you all so much. That really flew by. I just want to thank all of our panelists for sharing your time, your insights, and your experiences with students today. Thank you to our students who attended the workshop. Before you jump off, we just dropped our feedback survey link in the chat there, so we would love any feedback that you have about this session, if you could take a couple minutes to help us out with that. I'll stay on for a few minutes in case anyone has questions for Grad Academy, but I just want to thank you all once more. Thank you to our panelists, thank you to our students, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks again. Have a good one.